The morning fog still clung to the valley when Carter Brennan noticed something wrong with Duke. His German Shepherd had always been reliable, 15 years of working cattle, chasing coyotes off the property, and alerting to storms before they crested the ridge. But that Thursday morning in late September, Duke planted himself at the northwest fence line and refused to move. Carter killed the engine on his ATV and climbed off, his boots sinking into mud still soft from Tuesday's rain. The temperature hovered around 50 degrees, unseasonably cool for central Wyoming, and his breath formed small clouds in the air. Duke stood rigid near a cluster of juniper bushes, his ears pinned back, a low whine building in his throat. "What is it, boy?" Carter approached slowly, scanning the ground. No fresh cattle tracks, no blood, no obvious predator signs. Just Duke, trembling and digging at the base of a weathered fence post. The ranch stretched across 4,000 acres of scrubland and rocky outcroppings, most of it land Carter had inherited from his father 20 years ago. He knew every draw and canyon, every seasonal creek bed. This particular corner, where his property bordered the abandoned Whitmore place, had always been quiet. Nothing out here but sagebrush and silence. Duke barked once, sharp and urgent, then resumed digging. Dirt flew between his hind legs. Carter knelt beside him and saw it. A small sneaker print in the dried mud, partially obscured by recent rainfall but still visible. Child-sized. Maybe a boy's size, 4 or 5. His stomach tightened. He pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. No signal this far out. He'd have to drive back to the ranch house 12 miles south. But something made him hesitate. Duke wasn't just alerting, he was guarding. The dog had positioned himself between Carter and whatever lay beyond the fence line, his body language protective rather than aggressive. Carter stood and peered through the barbed wire. Beyond his property, the Whitmore land rolled away in gentle hills covered in tall grass and scattered pines. The old homestead had been empty since 2019, when the bank foreclosed after the widow Whitmore moved to a nursing home in Casper. Nobody had maintained the place since then. It had become a maze of collapsed outbuildings and overgrown trails. That's when he saw the second print, then a third, leading away from his fence, deeper into the abandoned property. The memory hit him like a physical blow. 2 years ago, almost to the day. Logan Hayes and Owen Mercer, 8 and 9 years old when they vanished from a church camping trip 30 miles north. The entire county had mobilized. Search parties, helicopters, K-9 units tracking scents that disappeared into nothing. The investigation had consumed everyone for weeks. Theories ranged from animal attacks to abduction, but no evidence ever surfaced. No ransom demands, no bodies. Just 2 boys who walked away from a campfire one October evening and never came back. Carter had joined those search parties. He'd spent days walking grid patterns through forests and meadows, calling names until his voice gave out. Like everyone else, he'd eventually accepted the heartbreaking probability. The boys were gone. But Duke didn't care about probabilities. Duke cared about what he smelled right now. Carter climbed through the fence, careful to avoid the barbed wire. Duke followed immediately, taking the lead, nose to the ground. They moved through the tall grass, Duke following a path invisible to human eyes. The dog moved with purpose, stopping occasionally to sniff the air, then continuing forward. 50 yards in, Carter found a torn piece of blue fabric snagged on a juniper branch. The material was faded from sun exposure, frayed at the edges. He pulled it free and examined it in the pale morning light. Cotton, maybe from a shirt or jacket. Small, definitely child-sized. Duke barked again, more insistent now. He'd stopped at the base of a rocky outcropping, partially hidden by scrub oak and wild rose bushes. Carter pushed through the vegetation and found himself staring at the entrance to what looked like a shallow cave. Really just an overhang in the sandstone formation, maybe 6 feet deep and 4 feet high. Inside, barely visible in the shadows, a pile of empty food cans, granola bar wrappers, a wool blanket so dirty it was nearly black, and 2 small backpacks, both bearing the logo of Riverside Elementary School. Carter's hands shook as he pulled out his phone again. Still no signal. He looked at Duke, who sat at the cave entrance, still trembling, still watching something Carter couldn't see. They were here, Carter whispered. Jesus Christ, they were actually here. But the cave was empty now. The blanket was cold. The most recent food wrapper showed a date stamp from 6 months ago. Duke whined again, then bolted away from the cave, heading northeast, deeper into the abandoned property. Carter ran after him. 2 years earlier, Avery Hayes had stood in almost this exact spot, though she hadn't known it then. She'd been part of the civilian search team that combed the Whitmore property during week 2 of the investigation. She remembered the September heat that year, the way the sun had beaten down on searchers moving through chest-high grass, calling her son's name until her throat bled. Logan had been 8 years old. Small for his age, quiet, the kind of kid who preferred building elaborate Lego structures to playing sports. He'd been excited about the church camping trip, his first without his parents. She'd packed his favorite snacks, made sure he had his inhaler for his mild asthma, hugged him 3 times before letting him board the church van. 26 hours later, he was gone. Along with Owen Mercer, his best friend since kindergarten. The official investigation had been thorough, almost brutally so. Madison Cole, the county sheriff's lead investigator, had interviewed every adult on that camping trip, every parent, every volunteer. The timeline was straightforward. The boys had eaten dinner with the group around 6 p.m., participated in an evening devotional, then asked to use the bathroom around 8:15. The camp bathrooms were 50 yards from the main fire pit, clearly visible. The youth pastor had watched them walk there. But they never came back. Initial theories focused on the nearby river, swollen from seasonal runoff. Dive teams searched for 3 days and found nothing. Tracking dogs picked up the boys' scent heading away from camp, but lost it after a quarter mile. Right around the time a heavy rainstorm hit the area, it was as if they'd simply evaporated. Madison had been honest with the families from the beginning. Most children who go missing in wilderness areas are found within the first 72 hours, or they're not found at all. But I promise you, we're not stopping. They hadn't stopped, not officially. The case remained open, assigned to Madison, though after the first month, active searching had ended. There was simply nowhere left to look. Psychics had called offering visions. Conspiracy theorists had flooded tip lines with wild theories. None of it led anywhere. Avery had divorced Logan's father, Marcus, 6 months after the disappearance. The grief had hollowed them both out in different ways. Marcus blamed the church, blamed himself for letting Logan go, blamed God. Avery blamed no one and everyone. She'd moved to a small apartment in town, started seeing a therapist, tried to rebuild some semblance of life. Owen's parents, David and Layla Mercer, had stayed in their house but stopped answering the door. Layla, a school nurse before the disappearance, never returned to work. David, a mechanic, became a ghost who went through motions at his shop, barely speaking. The town had learned to give them space, to nod sympathetically when they passed on the street, to stop asking if they were okay. Because nobody was okay. The whole county carried the weight of those 2 missing boys. Now, Carter Brennan held his phone to his ear as he drove his truck back toward his ranch house, Duke beside him in the passenger seat. The moment he'd gotten signal, he'd called Madison directly. "Carter, slow down." Madison's voice came through, calm but alert. "You found what exactly?" "A cave. Well, more like an overhang. On the old Whitmore place, right at my property line. There's stuff in there, Madison. Kids' backpacks from Riverside Elementary, food wrappers, a blanket." Duke wouldn't leave the area. A pause. "You didn't touch anything?" "I picked up one backpack to check the name tag. Logan Hayes." He heard Madison's sharp intake of breath. "I'm sending units now. Carter, I need you to stay at your ranch house. Do not go back out there. Do you understand?" Duke tracked something heading northeast from that cave. "Madison, what if there's still—" "Do not go back out there." Her voice had steel in it now. "If those boys are alive, and I'm not saying they are, but if they are, there's a reason they've been hidden for 2 years. Whoever did this might still be around. You could spook them. You could get hurt. Stay at your house." Carter pulled into his driveway and killed the engine. Through his kitchen window, he could see the coffee pot he'd left on that morning, the breakfast dishes in the sink. Normal life, happening while the impossible unfolded 12 miles north. "How long until you get here?" he asked. 40 minutes. I'm in Casper. I'm calling the FBI field office now. Carter." Another pause. Thank you. If this is what you think it is, thank you. After she hung up, Carter sat in his truck, Duke's head resting on his thigh. The dog was still trembling. Madison Cole arrived with 3 deputies, 2 FBI agents from the Cheyenne office, and enough equipment to conduct a small-scale military operation. By noon, they'd established a command post at Carter's ranch house and begun a systematic search of the area where Duke had first alerted. Carter had insisted on joining them, and Madison had reluctantly agreed, partly because Duke refused to work with anyone else. The dog had formed a bond with the scene, and nobody wanted to waste time fighting a traumatized animal. They found the cave exactly as Carter had described it. The FBI agents photographed everything before anyone touched it. One of the backpacks contained Logan Hayes' name written in faded marker on the inside flap. The other bore Owen Mercer's initials stitched into the fabric. Both bags held remnants of the supplies the boys had brought to the camping trip: flashlights with dead batteries, water bottles, a small first aid kit. But there was more, much more. Following Duke's lead, they discovered a trail that wove through the densest parts of the Whitmore property, staying carefully below ridgelines using natural cover. Someone had marked it with small cairns, stacks of 3 stones, placed every 100 yards or so. Easy to miss unless you knew what to look for. The trail led to a second shelter, this one more sophisticated. A lean-to constructed from fallen timber and camouflaged with branches and dried grass. Inside, they found more supplies, including several empty jugs that had once held water, canned goods with labels removed, and a cache of cheap prepaid phones, all disabled. Someone was sustaining them, Madison said quietly, studying the lean-to. This wasn't survival, this was maintenance. One of the FBI agents, a woman named Torres, knelt beside a fire pit. This ash is recent, within the past week. They're not just alive, they're still being maintained. The words hung in the air like something physical. Carter watched Duke sniff around the perimeter of the lean-to, then suddenly bolt again, heading further northeast. Everyone froze. "He's got something," Carter said. They followed the dog for another quarter mile, through terrain that grew increasingly rough. Here, the land rose toward a series of natural rock formations that created a maze of passages and dead ends. Duke navigated it without hesitation, finally stopping at what looked like a crack in a cliff face. Madison approached carefully, her hand on her service weapon. "Hello? This is Sheriff Madison Cole. If anyone can hear me, we're here to help. No one is in trouble. We just want to make sure everyone is safe." Silence. Just wind moving through the rocks. Then, from somewhere deep in the crack, "Is the dog friendly?" The voice was young, thin, uncertain. Madison's eyes widened. "Yes," she called back. "His name is Duke. He won't hurt you. Can you come out? We're not going to hurt you either." A long pause. Carter could hear his own heartbeat. 2 boys emerged from the darkness, blinking in the afternoon sun. They were filthy, their clothes hanging off frames that had grown taller but remained painfully thin. Their hair was long and matted, but their eyes were alert, watchful, calculating. Logan Hayes was now 10 years old. Owen Mercer was 11. And they were alive. Madison knelt slowly, making herself smaller. "Logan? Owen? My name is Madison. I'm a sheriff. These people are here to help. Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention right now?" Logan looked at Owen. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Owen spoke first. "We need food. Real food. Not just cans." "We can get you food," Madison said gently. "We can get you anything you need. But first, can you tell me, are you alone out here? Is there anyone else with you?" Between them. Logan's voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. "He said you'd come eventually. He said we had to be ready." "Who said that?" Torres asked, stepping forward. Owen flinched back. Logan grabbed his arm protectively. "The man who kept us safe. The man who saved us." Madison raised a hand, stopping Torres from advancing further. "Okay, that's okay. We'll talk about that later. Right now, let's get you boys somewhere warm and safe. Can you walk?" "We've been walking for 2 years," Logan said. There was no emotion in his voice, just statement of fact. They emerged from the rock maze slowly, the boys staying close together, watching the adults with the wariness of wild animals. Duke approached them carefully, tail wagging low. Owen reached out and touched the dog's head, and something in his face cracked just for a moment before he shut down again. As they made their way back to the vehicles, Carter caught Madison's eye. She looked shaken, something he'd never seen before. "They're not relieved," she whispered. "They're not happy to be found. Look at them." She was right. Logan and Owen walked like prisoners being transferred, not like children being rescued. They kept scanning the horizon, as if expecting something, or someone. The medical examination at Casper General Hospital took 4 hours. Logan and Owen were dehydrated, malnourished, and showed signs of prolonged outdoor exposure, but remarkably, they had no serious injuries. No broken bones, no infected wounds, no evidence of physical abuse. The pediatrician who examined them, Dr. Sarah Chen, called it miraculous given the circumstances. "Someone took care of them," she told Madison privately. "Whoever kept them hidden, they kept them alive. Fed them, gave them shelter, probably basic medical care. These boys should be dead or seriously damaged. Instead, they're survivable." Avery Hayes arrived at the hospital 45 minutes after the boys were brought in. Carter was still there, having refused to leave until he knew they were safe. He watched from the hallway as Avery was escorted into the examination room, where Logan sat on a hospital bed, wearing clean clothes that were still too big for him, picking at a sandwich. The reunion wasn't like the movies. Logan looked up when his mother entered, blinked once, and said, "Hi, Mom." No tears, no running embrace, just 2 years of absence condensed into 2 words. Avery crumpled. She sat down hard in a chair and covered her face, her body shaking with sobs. Logan watched her cry with the detached curiosity of someone observing weather patterns. The FBI established a child advocacy interview protocol, bringing in specialists trained in talking to traumatized children. But Logan and Owen weren't traumatized in the expected ways. They were calm, articulate, and utterly unwilling to discuss what had happened. It was Owen who finally broke, but not the way anyone expected. He was sitting in a private room with his parents, who had arrived separately and couldn't stop touching him, when he suddenly stood up and walked to the window. "He's still out there," Owen said quietly. "He's watching to make sure we're okay." David Mercer looked at Madison, who was observing the reunion. Who's still out there?" Owen turned to face them. "The man from the camping trip. He said the world was dangerous. He said people would hurt us if we went home. He said he was keeping us safe until we were old enough to protect ourselves." The room went cold. "Owen," Madison said carefully, "did this man take you from the campground? Did he force you to go with him?" "No," Owen said. "We went because Logan was scared. There was another man at the campground watching us, following us to the bathroom. Logan saw him looking through the window. We told the man, our man, and he said we had to leave right then, that the bad man was planning to hurt us." Logan, in the next room with his mother and a child psychologist, was telling an identical story. The FBI launched into immediate action. They pulled the complete file from the camping trip investigation, every background check on every adult present, every volunteer screened. They cross-referenced with sex offender registries, missing persons reports, everything. Madison pulled Carter aside in the hospital corridor. 2 years ago, there were 43 people at that campground, adults and teenagers serving as counselors. We vetted all of them. There was no predator. "Maybe there was," Carter said. "Maybe he was good enough to hide it. Or maybe," Madison said slowly, "there never was a predator at the campground at all. Maybe someone convinced 2 scared kids there was danger and used that fear to control them." The pieces were falling into place now, but they formed a picture nobody wanted to see. Over the next 6 hours, through patient, careful questioning, the story emerged. A man had befriended Logan and Owen at the campground. He'd been kind, attentive, the kind of adult who actually listened to kids. When Logan mentioned seeing someone suspicious near the bathrooms, probably just another camper, the man had validated his fear, amplified it, then offered a solution. "I can keep you safe, but we have to go now." The boys had believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was an adult, he seemed concerned, and he promised to protect them. He'd led them away from the campground right before the rainstorm, erasing their tracks. He'd hidden them on the abandoned Whitmore property, which he'd apparently been using as a base for months. He'd kept them alive with supplies he brought regularly, always at night, always careful to avoid detection. He'd told them the world was looking for them, but not to help them, to hurt them. He'd convinced them that staying hidden was the only way to stay safe. What did he look like? Torres asked Owen, notepad ready. Owen frowned, concentration creasing his forehead. I don't remember exactly. Brown hair, maybe 40. He wore glasses sometimes. He was nice. He brought us books. He taught us things. Logan's description was similarly vague. 2 years of isolation, 2 years of having only each other and this man, and they could barely describe him. It's intentional, Dr. Chen explained to the investigative team. He created dependency while keeping his own identity fluid. These boys couldn't identify him if they wanted to. But there was one concrete detail. He had a truck, Logan said. Dark blue, old. It made a clicking sound when he turned it off. Every law enforcement officer in Wyoming received the description within the hour. Roadblocks went up. The search for 2 missing boys transformed into the manhunt for their captor. 3 days passed. No sign of the man. No dark blue truck with a clicking engine. No new evidence on the Whitmore property, though forensic teams had turned it inside out. Logan and Owen remained in protective custody, slowly beginning to process what had happened to them. Therapists warned it would take years. The boys had been groomed, isolated, and psychologically manipulated. They developed a trauma bond with their captor. They genuinely believed he'd saved them. Carter returned to his ranch, but he couldn't settle. Duke had started refusing his food, spending hours staring toward the northwest fence line. The dog knew something was unfinished. On the 4th night, Carter was walking his property at dusk when he heard it. An engine, distant but distinct. A clicking sound as it shut off. He was a quarter mile from his ranch house, unarmed except for the flashlight in his hand. Duke was with him, and the dog had gone rigid, ears pricked forward. Carter pulled out his phone to call Madison, but a voice stopped him. Please don't. The man stood 30 feet away, hands visible and empty. He was ordinary looking, brown hair graying at the temples, glasses, wearing work clothes that could belong to anyone. 45, maybe 50, the kind of person you'd pass in a grocery store and forget immediately. My name is Carter Brennan, Carter said, keeping his voice steady. You're trespassing. I know. I'm sorry. The man's voice was soft, apologetic. I just needed to make sure they were really okay. The boys. Are they okay? They're safe. They're with their families. But are they okay? Real anguish in the question. Are people being kind to them? Are they getting the help they need? Carter's hand hovered over his phone. What's your name? It doesn't matter. The man took a step back. I never meant to keep them so long. At first, I really did see someone watching them at that campground, someone who worried me. I thought a few days, maybe a week, until I could figure out if there was real danger. But then, it was hard to let them go. They needed me. I was helping them. You kidnapped 2 children. I saved 2 children. The man's voice cracked. You don't understand. The world is full of people who hurt kids. I've seen it. I've lived it. I couldn't let that happen to them. Duke growled low in his throat. Carter put a hand on the dog's head, keeping him close. Turn yourself in, Carter said. Let the legal system doesn't protect children. It processes them. The man was backing away now toward the tree line. I just needed to know they were okay. That's all. I'll go now. You'll never see me again. If you run, they'll never stop looking for you. I know. A sad smile. But at least Logan and Owen are safe now. Really safe. That's what matters. Carter made a choice in that moment. He could try to stop this man himself, possibly get hurt or let him escape in the struggle. He could call for help right now, but the man would hear and bolt immediately. Or he could let him talk, keep him engaged, and trust that Madison had taught him enough about crisis negotiation to matter. Tell me about the truck, Carter said. Logan mentioned it. Said it made a clicking sound. The man paused, surprised. The fuel pump. It's been failing for months. I should fix it, but... He shrugged. Doesn't matter now. Where were you planning to go? After you left here? I don't know. Somewhere else. Somewhere I can help. The man tilted his head, studying Carter. You found them because of your dog. Duke, right? The boys told me about him. They could hear him barking sometimes from the ranch. It comforted them. They're children, Carter said quietly. They need their families. They need normal lives. What you did. What I did was give them 2 years they otherwise wouldn't have had. The man's voice hardened. Whatever you think of me, remember that. 2 years of life. 2 years of captivity. 2 years of safety. They stared at each other across the darkening field. Then Carter heard it. Vehicles approaching from the south, engines moving fast. Madison. She'd probably tracked his phone, or maybe Duke had some kind of monitoring system Carter didn't know about. The man heard it too. He smiled, genuinely warm. You called them before you came out here. Smart. No, Carter admitted. I didn't, but I should have. Thank you for talking to me, for listening. The man took 3 more steps backward. Tell the boys I'm proud of them. Tell them they don't have to be afraid anymore. Tell them yourself. Turn around. Surrender. The man shook his head. I can't go to prison. I wouldn't survive it. But I can disappear. I'm good at that. He turned and ran into the trees. Duke lunged forward, but Carter held his collar firm. He could chase, could let Duke chase, could try to be a hero. Instead, he stood there, flashlight illuminating empty space while sirens grew louder. Madison arrived with 4 patrol cars, 2 FBI vehicles, and enough firepower to stop a small army. By then, the man was gone, swallowed by 30,000 acres of wilderness that connected to national forest, to mountain ranges, to escape routes that could take him anywhere. They searched for 3 days. Found the truck abandoned near a Forest Service road, wiped clean. Found a campsite that had been meticulously erased. Found nothing else. The man who'd kept Logan Hayes and Owen Mercer hidden for 2 years vanished as completely as the boys once had. 2 months later, Carter visited Avery Hayes at her request. She'd moved back into her old house, and Logan was slowly adjusting to life there. School, therapy, normal childhood routines that felt anything but normal. He still asks about him, Avery said, pouring coffee in her kitchen. About the man. Asks if he's okay, if he's safe. She shook her head. How do I explain to my son that the person who stole 2 years of his life wasn't a monster? That's he's supposed to hate him, but he doesn't. You don't, Carter said. You let the therapists handle it, you just love him. Do you think they'll catch him? Carter thought about that night, about the man's face in the flashlight beam, about the choice he'd made to talk instead of act. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Do you regret not stopping him when you had the chance? He'd asked himself that question every day since. I don't know that either, but I know this. Logan and Owen are alive. They're home. That's what matters. Avery nodded slowly. Madison said your dog was a hero, that without Duke, we'd never have found them. Duke just knew something was wrong. He's a good dog. Better than good. She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Thank you, Carter, for listening to him, for following him, for bringing my son home. After he left, driving back toward his ranch with Duke beside him, Carter thought about heroes and villains, about choices made in moments of crisis, about the uncomfortable truth that sometimes good and evil weren't opposites, but different responses to the same wound. The man was still out there, probably helping someone else, probably convincing himself it was salvation instead of captivity. The FBI would keep looking. Madison would keep investigating, and somewhere 2 boys would keep growing up carrying a story that no one would ever fully understand. But they were alive. Against all odds, against 2 years of absence and fear and impossible hope, Logan Hayes and Owen Mercer were alive. And in the end, that was the only truth that mattered.